So welcome everybody. It looks like actually based on the registration list, we have a lot of new folks on this webinar, which is wonderful. Just a little bit of history. First off, I should say I'm Jan Lehman, the owner of CTC Productivity, and with me today is Walter Jankowski. Walter is our SharePoint guru and our kind of process improvement Lean Six Sigma guru as well. And if you've been kind of following us over the last couple months, we have been doing a webinar series about how to maximize the use of Microsoft 365. We started off with a very high level overview and then have been doing some deeper dives into the specific apps. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into SharePoint. For those of you that maybe missed our prior recordings, you can actually go out to our website at ctcproductivity.com/events, and it'll list all the past ones with links to the recordings. And I'll forewarn you, Walter is going to be giving you a ton of information today, so don't panic and feel like you have to take a ton of notes. This also will be out there, and so you can go back and watch it as many times as you want if you need to kind of catch some of the points that were made. Our next webinar will be in 1 month on December 8th, and it's going to be the same topic, but even more advanced sort of ideas around SharePoint and Teams. So a couple slides before I turn it over to Walter. One of our favorite slides is this statistic from the Wall Street Journal that's talking about how most employees are wasting almost half their workday because they weren't taught all the organizing skills to deal with today's demands. And we see this everywhere. I think one of the things we see a lot with senior leaders is they're completely unaware of the amount of time waste that happens in their organization. And there's lots of great strategies, whether it be time management strategies, effective delegation strategies. There's lots of things we can do as productivity consultants. But one of our favorite things is to leverage technology to get time back in your day. And so we think this is an important statistic for people to know. There's huge opportunity. So we're glad you made time for us today to learn some tricks. And the next slide I like as well. I've been teaching email management for, I think email's been around 25 years or so. And even to this day, I'm still teaching people how to effectively manage email. And so they barely really start to scratch the surface of using the technology. It's been around forever. And so you can imagine with Microsoft 365, people are completely barely scratching the surface. We often will ask our clients if they're on Teams and they'll go, oh yeah, we're using Teams, and we'll find out they're just using the video feature. They're not using posts and channel and all the wonderful features that come with that technology. So again, lots of areas of opportunity, so we're glad you're here. And on that note, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Walter.
All right, good afternoon. As Jan said, this is going to be like drinking from a fire hose. I'm going to give you lots of different examples, lots of different cool tools that you can use with SharePoint. So, as Jan said, if you want to go back and see, what was that? You can go back and look at these before or again. So I love this picture because it's the world of Microsoft 365, and there's all of this stuff. If you have Microsoft 365, you have access to all of these things. And today we're going to look at these two things, Teams and SharePoint, but in particular SharePoint and how it's used. All right, so let's get started. And most of the clients that we work with, Jan and Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, when you ask people, yeah, we use SharePoint, most of them will say they use it as a place to store their documents. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you that if you had a mountain, storing documents is only about the top 3 inches of capability. It's very powerful in sharing and collaborating with documents, but it is a lot more than that. And that's what this session is going to be about, is not just storing documents. All right. So Jan.
Walter, can I interrupt you? Yeah. I apologize. I missed part of my spiel. So I just realized we have a lot of new people on the call. So just to let you know, Walter's going to be going through more of a kind of a monologue of information. Normally when we do training or speaking, it's much more interactive and engaging, but we try to shrink this down to about 20 minutes of content, and then we open it up to Q&A. So as Walter's going through and you have some questions, you don't understand anything, please enter it into chat and we'll circle back later. And so for those of you that only have a half hour to spend with us, we're going to get through all the content, and then you're welcome to go if you don't have time, and then others can stay for the Q&A. So sorry about that, Walter.
No, by all means. Fantastic. So here's what I want to cover today. I'm going to start just with the kind of Teams and SharePoint 101 and how they kind of work together. Quick overview of some of the functionality, look and feel. Then we're going to talk about document libraries. That is where you store documents in SharePoint. And I'm going to show you some document libraries on steroids. And then I'm going to we'll cover some organizational, project, and department web pages that rock. And then I'll also show you how you can eliminate spreadsheet or tracking. And SharePoint has a very robust tracking capability. And I'll show you a couple of examples of that. And then we'll wrap it up. And like Jan said, we will have some questions after that. And then Nancy and Jan, if there are questions going along, I would be happy to answer them. All right, so Teams, SharePoint, just a quick overview of the functionality. Now, so if you're in Teams, I'm assuming that you have Teams. Typically what you have, if you are in Teams, on the left-hand side, you're going to see the apps you have access to. So, you know, if you have chat and Teams and calendar, those are the applications that you have access to. You can see on that one, I don't have call because for this client, I wasn't given access to do calls and things like that. So those are the apps you have access to. And then underneath in the Teams, you will also have the teams and channels you belong to. If you don't belong to a team or channel, you won't see it. And so you only see the ones that are there. And this little lock right here, that shows you that you are in a channel. So here is the strategic planning team. And then there's always a general, and then you can have channels underneath, and the lock says that it has limited access. I have access to this. So lots of people have access to the strategic planning team. Only a few subset have access to the KPI metrics team, right? And then in Teams, you have the top link bar, you have, you know, and that is customizable. You have posts and files, and you can put anything you like, any links that are quick, ready reference for your team. Now, most people work in Teams, like Jan said, you know, they set up meetings or they do a phone call or something. But when you set up and you create a team, so down in the lower left-hand side where it says join or create a team, if you create a team, this is what it looks like. It's very plain, welcome to the team, etc. But behind the scenes, when you create a team, it creates a SharePoint site behind it. And you can see here is the fire department team, and this is the SharePoint site behind it. So that when you upload files, it goes to the SharePoint site. And this is a blank, you can see here, this is a blank SharePoint page or site, okay? Now, when you upload files, in this case, I'm uploading files and I'm posting it to the whole team, so everybody has access to these primary files. What you are actually doing, the files that are shared or uploaded in the teams go into the SharePoint site. And if you click over on the files, you'll in the files tab, it will show you a view within SharePoint. And this is what it looks like on the SharePoint side. So you can see here's the strategic plan. 1, 2, 3 documents were uploaded. This is what it looks like in the documents general folder in SharePoint. And so it's in documents. And so when you can open them from either site, but then it allows, the master will always live in the SharePoint site. Okay, so if let me next. So in the this is what the site looks like. It could look like this. This is a blank site, but one of the powers of SharePoint is if you have owner access, you can turn it into a site like this. You can have communications and quick links and links to your documents and news. So like in this case, it was a strategic planning team. This is where the team, we worked in both the teams and we worked behind the scenes in the SharePoint site and basically had news to the teams there. And we also put our action items, etc. Okay. So here
Hey,
is,
Walter, just a
yeah,
quick comment back on that one. So when we were putting together these slides, what I sort of observed and Walter agreed with is, you know, back in the day we used to create like intranet sites and they were like websites. And so think of SharePoint as a really easy way for you to develop a similar thing like that for internal communication.
beautiful. Yes. So if you think about it, every time you have a Teams site, right, you have the Teams site, and then behind it is the SharePoint site. But what you can also do is have department, and that's what Jan was just talking about, is in the Teams site, it's only the people who have access to the Teams have access to it. Now you can also create an intranet and have what I would call a department public site, which means everybody in the organization can have access to it. And I'll show you some examples of that. So let me show you, let's step back, and many of you use SharePoint as a document library. Let me show you what you can do with those document libraries and put it on steroids. So here is, this is a typical document library. In this case, we created a knowledge base, and for this client, they wanted one-stop shop for all of the master documents across the organization. And so we created a knowledge base. Everyone has access to this knowledge base. And so it's just like any other document library, but so when you can upload files and you can put documents in here. However, what you can also add is metadata. So things like document type, department, the name of the document, document owner, audience, original document creation date, next review date, etc. I can add these columns. And when I add those columns, and you can add any column that you want, when I add those columns, it allows me to create views, or I can filter and sort and group by those additional columns. So I want you to think about the metadata is similar if you've been on Amazon, and notice on the left-hand side, you can click off your filters and choices. That's what metadata is it allows you to add additional data that you can't necessarily in OneDrive and or Windows Explorer. Okay, let me show you an example. Here is, I selected one document here, and over on the left-hand side, you can see here are all the metadata for that, and it's attached to a given file. Okay, there's the metadata. And so when you think about metadata in an organization, you want to think about, well, what do I want to be able to track, or what fields would you like to have associated with any file in your organization? Things like type of document, owner, next review date, status, process step, file size, compliance number, whatever you in your organization you want to track, filter, sort, group. That's what metadata is for. It's extremely powerful. And once you have that metadata, and you can see here, I've grouped and sorted this by department type and etc. When you create then views, you can create views that are I would call under the hood. This is the all documents view, but you can see I can show people what I want them to see. So you can see here's the columns and sort and filter and tabular view and group by and totals and style. So if you look under the hood, I can, in the columns, I can check on and off what columns do I want and what position do I want it to be. And so if I only want to show you 3 things in that, you see only 3 things. If I want, I can sort by the name, I can sort by the department, I can sort by, and I can have multiple sorts. I can also filter. Like in this case, I'm going to filter by process step begins with, and then what I'm looking for. In this case, I had a naming convention of the documents. Anything that began with master investment list, it's only going to show you those documents. Okay, and then I can group by. Think of group by is it allows drill down capabilities, or it's like putting it into a folder. In this case, you can group by process step. I can do totals, etc. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do with views that you can't necessarily do with the folder. Okay. Okay, that is document libraries on steroids. Next, I want to show you kind of web pages that rock, and I'm going to show you some examples of organizational, department, and project pages. This is one of the most powerful uses of SharePoint and Teams. Is not only can you store documents in it, but you can, like Jan said, you can create kind of an intranet. So here's an example of, this is a home page for, in this case, it's the city of Appleton. Every single employee, when they log in and they go to their browser, this is what shows up. And so it has, across the top, it has a tap nav bar. This is on every single site. It has drop-down capabilities. And so every employee has the capability to go anywhere, whether it be Teams sites or SharePoint sites or external sites, etc. You can also have all organization communications. So in this case, you have Core Connect News. These are all of the top 4 to 5 or however many things that, this is a rotating carousel that will tell you, here's what's going on in the organization. And then they also have news underneath here. You know, it's so-and-so's birthday, get out and vote, whatever that looks like, all right? You can also put in quick links. So as we design this site, we basically said, what is it that every single employee needs access to? Well, the website and their webmail and the public portal for neighborhoods, and here's time entry, etc. So what are the things that people commonly need to do their jobs? And think of it as a one-stop shop for all employees coming in here, and then you can communicate to them, here's what's going on. So that is organizational SharePoint intranet. Now you can also do department home. So think of the large organization has its own site. Now you can have each department having their own home page. So it's a one-stop shop for all department communications. And it might be, and think of it as like a staff desktop. What are all the things that my staff and my department need in order to do their jobs? But it also can be resources to other departments. So if you want to go and you want to put in a work order request, so you can put in, here's the purpose of our department, what we do, here's the key people, work order requests, frequently asked questions, key department info, department news. So you can see here, here's the fire department on here. Here you can contact us, tells them the weather, mental health resources. These are links for the firemen. These are the common links that they use. They have their directories that they need, and then their news. You can see over here they've added, they have a Twitter account, and they posted up the Twitter account for the fire department. So then you can also, here's IT, that this basically has what the purpose of the department is, and then it has, you can contact us here, and then if you want to submit a request or a user request form, you click on this, and if you want to check out a projection unit, you click here and it submits a request behind the scenes. So again, all employees have access to this, and they can go and see all the information technology. And there's also information technology news, etc. Okay, here's one that is a call center. They wanted to make it real clean and simple, and they answered 3 different types of calls in this call center. And so all employees, if it's a disability question, they click here and it has all of the different questions behind the scenes and how they would answer it, and links and all the resources behind each of these. And you can see here the manager wanted a little announcements, and then here's some of the quick links, etc. If you have a project team, you can build out a project team SharePoint site, and it has, you can see here, it has the team announcements, what's the purpose of the team, any new discussions, their calendar. You can say progress to date, any kind of team changes, frequently asked questions. And over on the left nav here, they have their notebook. That's their OneNote, which you can go watch Nancy's great session on OneNote, and all of the team's document, team members, their accomplishments, etc. So it's a one-stop shop for a project team. You can also build out employee landing pages. In this case, so not only do you have SharePoint in the intranet, you can build out a landing page for every single person. And it's a standard template that has, here's my calendar, here's all of my teams, here's my tasks, here are my files, my OneDrive, everything associated with my desk. This is my desktop. You can also build out portals, learning portals for both your customers and your internal and external customers. You want to build out a portal on how to learn SharePoint or Teams. If you roll it out, you can give people access to all of the learning in the organization. Okay, that is all of the, I mean, there's infinite possibilities that you can have for your website, but let me cover one of the other useful tools of SharePoint is if any of you are tracking data. So things like if you are tracking work order requests or whatever by in spreadsheets, get them out of spreadsheets. There's lots of alternatives for tracking tasks, work requests, action items in your department. You can use, and Nancy has covered To-Do and Planner, etc. So there's lots of different ways to post to-do list and manage tasks and action items. You can also put them in a list. So I'm going to show you an example of one where a organization wanted to track their strategic plan action items. This is a 5-year strategic plan, and they wanted everyone to be able to say, where am I at with my strategic action items? And so we built out a strategic plan page, mission, vision, guiding principles, and then here is, if I click on, and then here's their over high level strategic plan. I click on strategic plan action items, and it takes me to, here it is rolled up by strategic goal, by objective, and I click on the objective. It takes me to the specific action items underneath here. And if I click on this one, it takes me to the actual, it's a form that people fill out. That's all the strategic plan is put in, and action items. And then you have your start date, assigned to, percent complete, and then all of the users, anybody who's assigned an action item goes in and makes an update in here that it's in progress and status, etc. Now, the beauty of this is it looks like a spreadsheet, but everyone can be in it at the same time and do their editing. Now, what's really cool is you can export this list to Excel, and this is what it looks like. It's linked to Excel, and then you can do calculations and the like, and what you get is a poor man's scorecard. you can develop these scorecards in Excel, and it basically says what percent complete am I by department, by goal, by objective, by whatever you want, and doing all the graphics. Extremely powerful tool to track progress and etc. Okay, so I am gonna. We would love to speak to your organization if you want to think about whether you have SharePoint already. We've kind of put it into SharePoint topics in the home theme. So we have seminars around, so you're thinking about building a new SharePoint home, feng shuiing your existing SharePoint sites, moving to a new SharePoint home, or you're remodeling projects, or you remodel projects and make your SharePoint sites a smart home. Like you want to fine tune it for productivity. We'd be happy to speak with your organization, and that's all free. So that's it. Next webinar is December 8th, and I just touched on the next layer. There is a lot more stuff, advanced Teams and SharePoint techniques, and that will be the next session. So,
Awesome.
Jan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and wrap up and kind of close the presentation part, and then we can go into Q&A. And again, if you have any questions, you can enter them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just ask them. But just a couple of things. A lot of times after doing these webinars, we've had a number of people think that all we do is Microsoft 365. So just to make sure you know, CTC productivity is broader than that. So in addition to optimizing the use of that technology, 365, we also do a lot of process improvement work. Think of it as like Lean Six Sigma on the office side, not in the manufacturing environment. And then do a lot of metrics, or yeah. So go ahead and go to the next one. We do a lot of different, so one-on-one coaching, group coaching, company-wide training, speaking at associations, all related to productivity. These are just a few of the topics we touch on, but any time task management, teaching leaders how to be more effective in their role with effective meetings and better delegation skills. And then a lot of the Microsoft 365 technical training. So, and then some strategic planning as well. So that's what we do. And then we'll go ahead and open up to Q&A. And again, feel free to unmute yourself, show your camera, and ask questions, or you can enter into chat. And Walter, I'm going to ask a couple, because so while we're waiting for people to drum up some ideas, unless does anybody have one that they want to talk about right now? I can talk to Walter every day, so I don't need my questions answered. All right, well, you guys think of one I'm going to ask. So Walter, SharePoint rolled out, what, like, I don't know, it feels like SharePoint rolled out 10 years ago or so, and it got a really bad rap. And now it's a huge piece of this fabulous technology. Did SharePoint change? Like, was there a lot of revamping to SharePoint, or was it just poorly marketed and poor education around it? I've always been curious, like whether it's a different tool now, or whether they just didn't do a very good job with that rollout, because it got a really bad rap way back when.
That is a really good question. SharePoint has changed significantly, and Microsoft, they basically have now started bundling all of these apps together. Mm-hmm. And what has happened when they did that is they realized they needed a delivery mechanism that was, and the old versions of SharePoint, and Nancy, you can add to or subtract from, the old versions of SharePoint was very clunky, a lot more difficult. Mm-hmm. Now they've made it much more graphical, and that was one of the reasons for the design of Teams, is they wanted even more easy way for teams to interact and communicate with each other. And that, so Teams,
got it.
SharePoint got, Teams came into play, and then SharePoint became much more graphical, and now it is very easy to use and very easy to set up sites, where before it was, you almost had to be a programmer to do it.
Got it. Oh, cool. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to stay quiet for a minute here and see. Please, again, unmute yourself or enter into chat.
Well, I know Christine and Debbie were intensely looking at the screen as Walter was. The rest of the people, I don't know because we can't see them. Nothing pops into anybody's head.
I guess the only thing that I was kind of wondering, I've used Microsoft for years, and I did use SharePoint early on, and I totally agree with what you said about how it got a pretty bad rap back then for good reason, I think. But in terms of all of these great, you know, things like the intranet and the web pages you can build and that sort of thing, I mean, does it still take like a dedicated person to update that kind of stuff?
Excellent question. Most of the time, when we set these up in organizations, typically IT is involved because you know they're the ones who is managing the Microsoft 365 account. But what the beauty of SharePoint and Teams is, it's a decentralized model. So what you want is typically we will set it up where you have a site owner. So you'll have typically the manager of the department. So they own everything that is on there and the content, but then you'll have site administrators. And the site administrators, there's a little bit of work up front, you know, so if I go to this, building out this site, you train, typically it takes about 2 hours to train a site administrator so that they can actually build out this site. Then it's about, I want to say a grand total of 4 hours to actually build out. It's very simple. These are all little web parts. So it's very simple to learn how to build out your pages. And then once it's built out, they get feedback and from their department and, oh, I'd like this and move this and change this. But then it's about, I want to say, Nancy, would you say it's like maybe 2 hours a week of just maintaining, updating, deleting, archiving files, you know, keeping it clean, keeping it fresh. So the lift, you no longer have typically one person. You might have somebody in IT who owns the system, but then many people throughout the organization will be like the site admins. I don't know if that
You
answers
want
your
to, yeah,
question.
I mean, you want to stay on top of it. It's like anything, right? It's like your website. Your website's not static. You're constantly doing updates to make sure that you're keeping people informed of new decisions. But it's important to identify one kind of lead person, because you don't just want everybody going in there and adding information and messing around with it. So if you can have 1 or 2 lead people on top of it, but multiple people aware of how to do it. So like the example Walter showed, here's the fire department, or here's the city of Appleton, and then there's the fire department and the police department. So the people who do the city of Appleton are not going to manage the fire department and the police department. You want to have somebody in each of those organizations and departments that they know how to update and add content and remove content.
And my experience is the site admins, they love it. They absolutely, once you show them and train them of how to build out a site, and then you hand them the keys, they just absolutely love it. They start thinking about, oh my gosh, I could take this and I could build a list to do this, and oh, that we have out on a whiteboard and I can convert that, and they go crazy in the department. I haven't had a site owner yet say they hated their job doing it.
Thank you for that.
Any others?
I have a question. I'm pretty new to this, the SharePoint and the Teams and all that. And I'm wondering, if you are storing all your documents on SharePoint, what then is the purpose of OneDrive? Does that integrate somehow?
Yes, excellent question. If you, let me go to a document library here. Where's my, That was the first thing
So-
I had.
Well, he's pulling that up, and to talk about the integration, Christine, the biggest difference between SharePoint and OneDrive is actually they're both, OneDrive is actually your personal SharePoint library. So if you think of your email address, you get a personal space where prior to 365, or maybe even now in conjunction with it in your organization, you have an S drive, which is shared documents throughout the company, but you also may have some server space that's allocated for you, an H or a D or a G drive, that you put your personal business documents on. So OneDrive replaces your personal server space, and SharePoint replaces the company server space. So companies are moving away from their personal server and their own server to using just Microsoft servers in the cloud, which could be OneDrive or could be SharePoint.
So Christine, right here in every document library, you have this little sync button. And if you click on the sync, what it does is it goes to your OneDrive, and then it will show up in your, then it will sync it with whatever is on this site. And so you choose what you want to sync on SharePoint or not. And so like if you're in, you are in a project team and you don't want to have to go to the site all the time and you're in OneDrive, you can just hit the sync button and it will automatically sync it, and it will be in OneDrive, it'll be in SharePoint. It doesn't duplicate anything. It just presents it on your OneDrive. Am I right with that, Nancy?
Well, OneDrive is the name of the syncing app. And,
Yeah.
and this is where people get confused because Microsoft and their descriptions and labels of things. So OneDrive is a syncing app. And when you use the OneDrive sync app, you synchronize your personal, you can, if you want, you synchronize your personal OneDrive from the cloud to your computer, but you also get the ability, what Walter's showing you, to synchronize these SharePoint document libraries that you have access to your computer as well, so that you don't always have to go out to the cloud to find that document, to open it in Word or Excel. You can go essentially to your Windows Explorer on your Windows 10 computer or your Finder on a Mac, and you can find that document and you can go ahead and open it up and you can edit it. So OneDrive actually has two terminologies for Microsoft. The sync app is a OneDrive sync app, and your personal storage space is OneDrive storage space.
So essentially SharePoint would be, instead of sharing a folder in your OneDrive, you could store those documents on SharePoint, and then everyone would just have access to it that way instead of getting into your, as you say, Nancy, personal space.
Right.
Got it.
If it
Thank
is
you.
something that more people need access to on an ongoing basis, I would absolutely put it in the SharePoint document library. If it is you're working on, so many people are using OneDrive, they're working on something and it's not really ready to go out there for others in the company to play with, but maybe you and I are working on it together, so you might want to share it with me in your OneDrive. And then when we're ready to post it for everybody, we're going to put it out in SharePoint, and then you're going to delete the one that's in your personal OneDrive because you don't need that pre-copy anymore. We just need that final copy that's on SharePoint.
Excellent question.
These are great questions. Keep trying to stump the instructors, ladies. These are awesome. Anybody else have questions?
It is possible to stump us, isn't it, Walter?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And again, you can enter it into chat if you'd rather type your question in, or. And I'll ask another one. So, Walter, and maybe you're going to talk about this in the next session, but we talk, we hear a lot about like Power BI, and talk about Power BI in relation, or what the Power Apps in relation to SharePoint, unless that's going to be stealing the thunder for the next show.
No, it'll be a good precursor to. So we talked about, this is a strategic plan action items. This can be any action items. It could be work in your department, or I'm getting phone calls or emails, or, in your department, if somebody's working, they get what is called a work order request. So any action item or work order request, you can track in SharePoint. when I showed this with where you can export it to Excel, well, Excel is just, I don't want to say just, Excel allows you to manipulate the data, right? It allows you to do pivot tables or create graphs and do some analysis and etc. Well, take Excel and now take it to the next level. Power BI basically creates a dashboard. And the beauty, this is an Excel document that is, that is basically just printed off and it creates a dashboard. What Power BI does is it puts it truly in a dashboard that I can have that dashboard now on my phone. And so if I am I'm the head of a public works department, I can actually see work order requests coming in. I can see what my turnaround time is. We just set up for the fire departments of Oshkosh and Appleton. We just set up a dashboard on their phone using Power BI, and the chiefs can see how well each station is doing, how well each whatever your key performance indicators are. You can create it and put it in it, and the Power BI just displays it. Very easy to create a dashboard and then displays it online, which is a lot more difficult to do in Excel, if you know Excel. And it's all live in real time.
Yeah, the other thing about Power BI that's really powerful is it doesn't just pull from Excel. It can pull from all sorts of external data sources. So if you have a database or some internal system that you're using, typically you're able to pull data out of that too. So you can pull data from multiple sources and create these powerful graphics and KPIs that Walter was saying. So it's a super duper excellent tool.
Yeah, it is very powerful. And
super duper excellent.
Super duper.
As soon as I said that, I thought about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's what popped into my head.
One of the, and that is going to be one of the topics that we'll cover next time. And I'm not going to get deep into Power BI, but I'm going to show you, here's some capabilities of Power BI, like Nancy was just saying, of having multiple sources, doing the analysis and presenting it out on your phone.
Okay. Oh, we got a question. Can you talk about the difference between classic views versus modern views in SharePoint? Is it a personal choice, or you may need to use one versus the other based on specific technical needs for the organization?
Excellent question.
Thank you, Petrona.
So I'm trying to, so this, and Microsoft is, by them going to the cloud, the latest version of everything is now out there, and it will just automatically show up. And I can't tell you, Nancy, Jan, and I have had this happen many times where we're like, wait a minute, this is different. How did I get it? It's because Microsoft has changed it behind the scenes. So that is the modern experience. The classic experience is oftentimes organizations have gone to or have done built-in custom things, and Microsoft realized, well, we can't just always have something something updating behind the scenes all the time, because people have things that are built in. And so what they did was they took a point in time and they said, we're going to do the classic experience and allow you to just keep it the way it was. So for instance, this is the classic experience. This view is the classic experience of this strategic plan action item site. It is a 2016, so it's 4 years old, but they did not want to convert yet. And so it has just a little bit different look and feel, but you can switch between them. You can actually, down in most of the screens, you can see a little click on this button to see the classic experience. And so you can flip between them.
Yeah, key word that he said there is most.
Yeah.
You do not see classic view, switch to classic view on everything,
Right.
but on many of them you do.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there is one. Like if it is in the modern experience, like this site is the modern experience, you have to work very hard to go find where that button is to click back to the classic experience, because the classic experience doesn't have this capability to, this is called a hero web part, and it does, the classic experience doesn't have it. So you won't be able to see this web part in the classic experience. But if you have just regular lists and document libraries and stuff, many times you can just click over to the classic experience. Good question. Very good question.
Awesome. See, I learned something hanging out with you guys every day. I love it. That was a great question. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up because we're already at the end time. There's a couple links in the chat if you haven't seen them yet. There's the last one I put in is if you want to sign up for our newsletter, so you'll be alerted when we're having these webinars. So click on the link and you can sign up there. There's also a registration link for the December 8th webinar, and then can't remember the other one was I put, just a link to the website if you want to see past recordings. So grab those, click on those before you close out. But thanks, Walter, that was awesome. Nance, glad you're here as a sidekick. That was bonus. And thanks everybody, but let us know if we can be any help. Thanks.